Netherwallop hides a deadly secret. St. Mary Mead, fiction's murder capital. I'm Eliza Thorne, chasing a curse that kills. Is it real or a lie woven by human greed? From cryptic diaries to dangerous games, I'll risk everything to uncover the truth.
Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Allure of a Sleepy Village. Eliza Thorne slumped into her worn leather armchair, the kind that creaked like an old ship's deck under her weight, and cracked open the dusty tome she'd fished from the bottom of a thrift store bin. The cover was faded, embossed with gold lettering that read, "The Murder at the Vicarage" by Agatha Christie. It was a whim purchase, something to distract her from the relentless grind of chasing down embezzlement scandals and petty thefts in the bustling heart of London. As a crime journalist for the Daily Echo, Eliza thrived on facts, cold, hard evidence that didn't rely on intuition or superstition. But tonight, with rain pattering against her apartment window like impatient fingers, she allowed herself this indulgence. The pages turned effortlessly, pulling her into the quaint world of St. Mary Mead, where Miss Jane Marple, that unassuming spinster with a mind sharper than a stiletto, unraveled mysteries from her chintz-covered parlor. Eliza smirked at first, dismissing the village as a caricature of rural England, gossiping maids, pompous colonels, and poison-laced teacups. But as she delved deeper, a peculiar statistic nagged at her. She paused, setting the book down to grab her laptop. A quick search through literary databases revealed something startling. St. Mary Mead, across Christie's novels, averaged more murders per fictional resident than any other setting in detective fiction. Baker Street, mere child's play. Cabot Cove, from those American shows, a distant second. This sleepy hamlet was a veritable slaughterhouse on paper. "Why hasn't anyone written about this?" Eliza muttered to herself, her fingers flying across the keys. Her skepticism kicked in. Surely it was just Christie's flair for drama. But the journalist in her smelled a story. What if the real-world inspirations for St. Mary Mead held echoes of those tales? Christie had drawn from her own surroundings, after all. A bit of digging pinpointed Netherwallop, a Hampshire village often cited as a muse for the fictional Mead. It was obscure, untouched by tourism, and ripe for exploration. By morning, Eliza had booked a train ticket and a room at a local inn. "A weekend jaunt," she told her editor over the phone. "Call it a palate cleanser before the next corruption exposé." The train rattled through the countryside, trading London smog for rolling green hills dotted with sheep that looked like misplaced clouds. Eliza watched the scenery shift, her notebook open on her lap, jotting down initial thoughts. Is fiction's deadliest village hiding real skeletons? She chuckled at the pun, but a flicker of unease stirred as the conductor announced her stop. Netherwallop emerged like a postcard from the past, thatched roofs peeking over hedgerows, a stone church steeple piercing the sky, and narrow lanes where bicycles outnumbered cars. No billboard screamed about murders here. It was all buttery scones and blooming gardens. Stepping off the platform, Eliza inhaled the crisp air laced with wood smoke and fresh earth. The inn, the Fox and Hounds, was a half-timbered building with ivy clawing up its walls like possessive fingers. The proprietor, a ruddy-faced man named Harold with a mustache that could hide secrets, greeted her with a booming voice. "Welcome, Miss Thorne. Londoner, eh? You'll find our pace a tad slower, but the ale's worth the wait." Eliza smiled politely, checking in and hauling her suitcase up creaky stairs to a room overlooking the village green. Unpacking, she glanced out the window. Villagers ambled by. An elderly woman in a floral dress tending to roses. A young couple laughing as they pushed a pram. Idyllic. Too idyllic, perhaps. She shook off the thought and headed out, camera slung over her shoulder, ready to probe. Her first stop was the churchyard, a labyrinth of weathered gravestones tilting like drunken sailors. Moss clung to the inscriptions, and yew trees cast long shadows that danced in the breeze. Eliza wandered the paths, snapping photos of epitaphs that spoke of lives cut short, beloved wife, taken too soon, and wondered if Christie had strolled here, gleaning ideas for her plots. A groundskeeper, a wiry old man with dirt-caked hands named Silas, noticed her scrutiny. "Admirin' the stones, are ye?" he called, leaning on his spade. His accent was thick, laced with the rolling R's of the countryside. Eliza nodded, introducing herself. "I'm researching Agatha Christie's inspirations. This place reminds me of St. Mary Mead, peaceful on the surface, but with a history, I bet." Silas's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Ah, the Dame of Daggers herself. Aye, she visited kin nearby back in the day, but our nether wallop's got its own whispers. Folks say the ground here is soaked in more than rain." He gestured to a cluster of graves from the 1920s. "Take old Vicar Hargrove, strangled in his study. They said it was a burglar, but whispers pointed to a jilted lover. Never solved. Sounds like one of his yarns, don't it?" Intrigued, Eliza pressed for details. Silas spun a tale of Hargrove's midnight vigils, how he'd been found with a silk scarf knotted around his neck, eyes bulging in eternal surprise. No forced entry, no stolen goods, just a half-finished sermon on forgiveness scattered on the floor. "Village hushed it up," Silas added, lowering his voice as if the dead might overhear. "Bad for the image, you see. But dig deep enough, and you'll find bones aplenty." Eliza jotted notes furiously, her pulse quickening. This wasn't just lore, it mirrored Christie's murder at the vicarage almost too closely. Skepticism warred with excitement. Was it coincidence, or had Christie borrowed from real events? Thanking Silas, she moved on, the gravel crunching under her boots like muffled warnings.
The High Street beckoned next, a ribbon of shops where time seemed to lag. She ducked into a tea room called the Willow Basket, its windows fogged with steam from kettles. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of lavender scones and Earl Grey. A cluster of women huddled at a corner table, their voices a murmur of local chatter. Eliza ordered a pot of tea and eavesdropped shamelessly. "Did you hear about the miller's cat? Vanished last night, poor thing," one woman said, her pearls clinking against her saucer. "Probably that fox again," another replied, but her tone held an edge, as if foxes weren't the only predators. Eliza introduced herself casually, mentioning her interest in Christie. The women perked up. Netherwallop's brush with fame was a point of pride. The eldest, Mrs. Edith Poole, with silver hair pinned in a neat bun, leaned forward. "Oh, dearie, we've all got a bit of Marple in us. But mind you, this village has its shadows. Back in '35 there was the affair at Willow Cottage, poison in the jam, they reckoned. Official word, bad berries, but we knew better." As Mrs. Poole elaborated, Eliza learned of a spinster named Agnes who brewed preserves laced with something sinister, targeting a rival for the village fate's blue ribbon. Agnes vanished before charges stuck, leaving behind a cottage now overgrown with brambles. "Folks avoid it," Mrs. Poole warned. "Bad luck clings like burrs." The conversation flowed like the tea, warm and revealing. Eliza shared laughs over Christie's clever twists, but beneath the camaraderie, she sensed an undercurrent, a reluctance to delve too deep. As the women dispersed, Mrs. Poole slipped her a faded postcard. "For your research, love. Old map of the village trails. Some paths lead to forgotten spots." Energized, Eliza followed one such trail, winding through meadows where wildflowers bobbed in the wind like conspirators. The path narrowed, hemmed by ancient oaks whose branches intertwined overhead, forming a natural archway.
Birds flitted silently, as if holding their breath. She emerged at Willow Cottage, its thatch sagging like a defeated sigh, windows boarded with splintered planks. Vines choked the door, but curiosity propelled her forward. Testing the latch, she found it gave way with a groan. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of light piercing the gloom. The air was stale, redolent of mildew and neglect. Eliza's flashlight beam swept over remnants of life, a chipped teapot on a shelf, faded wallpaper peeling like old skin. In the parlor, a writing desk caught her eye, its drawers ajar. Rifling through yellowed papers, recipes, letters, she unearthed a leather-bound diary, its cover embossed with initials A.L. Heart racing, Eliza flipped it open. The entries were spidery script, dated from the 1930s. The whispers grow louder. They say the Mead is cursed. Blood calls to blood. Every secret buried rises like mist. Pages detailed suspicions of neighbors, petty grievances escalating to threats. One chilling passage, I saw him slip the vial into her cup. But who will believe a lonely old woman? The curse claims another. It hinted at a lineage of misfortunes, a curse, tying the village's woes to ancient feuds over land and love. Eliza's rational mind rebelled. Curses? Preposterous! This was likely Agnes's delirium, fueled by isolation. Yet the parallels to Christie's plots unnerved her. Poison, observation from afar, the unassuming witness. Pocketing the diary for further study with a mental note to return it, she stepped outside, the door creaking shut behind her like a final breath. The sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the village. Eliza made her way back to the inn, the diary a weight in her bag. Harold greeted her with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. "Rough day exploring, miss? This'll set you right." Sipping in the cozy lounge by a crackling fire, Eliza let the warmth seep in. The diary's ramblings faded to folklore, amusing fodder for her article. St. Mary Mead's allure is in the imagination, she mused. Real life is messier, but safer. Satisfied with her day's haul of blend of history and hearsay, she retired early, the village's quiet enveloping her like a blanket. Little did she know, as shadows lengthened outside, that the whispers Silas mentioned were just beginning to stir anew. But for now, in the glow of her bedside lamp, Eliza closed her eyes with a sense of accomplishment. The enigmas of Nether Wallop felt contained, a puzzle partially solved, leaving her eager for tomorrow's deeper dives, yet content in the illusion of control.
Chapter 2. Whispers from the Graveyard. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains of Eliza's room at the Fox and Hounds, casting delicate patterns on the quilt like forgotten lacework secrets. She stirred awake, the diary from Willow Cottage still tucked under her pillow, a tangible remnant of yesterday's discoveries. Its cryptic entries lingered in her mind, but she pushed them aside, attributing the unease to fatigue and an overactive imagination. Today demanded structure, the village archives, where facts would anchor her story and dispel any lingering whimsy about curses. After a hearty breakfast of poached eggs on toast slathered with marmalade that tasted of sun-ripened oranges, Eliza set out. The air was crisp, carrying the faint tang of dew-kissed grass. Nether Wallop stirred lazily. A milkman clattered by on his cart, nodding greetings, while schoolchildren skipped along the lane, their laughter echoing like distant bells. She made her way to the old town hall, a squat Georgian building with ivy framing its arched doorway. Inside, the archives were housed in a dimly lit basement, shelves groaning under leather-bound volumes and yellowed ledgers that smelled of aged paper and forgotten ink.
The archivist, a bespectacled woman named Lydia Grant, with wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose like a vigilant owl, welcomed her with a reserved smile. "Journalist, you say, from London? We don't get many of your sort poking about. What brings you to our dusty tomes?" Eliza explained her quest, linking Christie's St. Mary Mead to Nether Wallop's potential inspirations. Lydia's eyes lit up behind her lenses. "Ah, Dame Agatha. She had family ties in these parts. Her brother-in-law lived nearby in the 20s. Rumors say she gleaned ideas from local gossip during visits, unsolved cases especially. We've got records that might curl your toes." Guided to a scarred oak table, Eliza dove in. Lydia pulled out parish registers from the 1920s, their pages brittle as autumn leaves. The first volume detailed births, marriages, and deaths. Mundane at first glance, but cross-referenced with newspaper clippings, they revealed undercurrents of tragedy. One entry caught her eye: the 1921 demise of farmer Elias Croft, found slumped in his barn with a pitchfork through his chest. Official verdict: accidental fall, but a coroner's note scribbled in the margin hinted otherwise. Wound angle suggests external force, no witnesses. Eliza's pen scratched across her notebook. This echoed Christie's penchant for farmyard foul play, like the impaled victim in The Body in the Library, though that was a later work. Digging deeper, she uncovered a cluster of poisonings in 1923. A local herbalist, Widow Thorne, no relation, Eliza noted with a wry smile, had supplied tonics to ailing neighbors. 3 died convulsing, their symptoms mirroring arsenic ingestion. The inquest blamed tainted well water, but whispers in appended letters from villagers pointed to jealousy over a shared suitor. "She brewed more than remedies," one anonymous tip read. Christie, with her pharmaceutical background from wartime nursing, would have relished such details. Her novels brimmed with subtle toxins disguised as cures. As hours slipped by, Eliza pieced together a mosaic of mishaps. A 1925 drowning in the River Test. Squire Reginald Beaumont, an avid angler, pulled from the depths with bruises inconsistent with a simple slip. His will, altered days before, favored a distant nephew over his wife. Suicide, the report claimed, but Eliza spotted discrepancies in the water levels, too shallow for an accidental plunge. It reminded her of Murder is Easy, where rural accidents masked malice. These weren't grand urban scandals. They were intimate, festering in the close-knit web of village life, much like Miss Marple's observations from her window seat. Lydia returned with tea, strong Assam and chipped china cups, and shared her own insights. Christie didn't invent from thin air. Her grandmother, they say, was the spark for Marple, sharp-eyed, unflappable. But the plots, pulled from headlines she'd tweak. Take the Green Bicycle affair up in Leicestershire, 1919, just on the cusp of the 20s. A young woman shot while cycling. A mysterious man on a green bike vanished. Unsolved to this day. Echoes in Christie's twists on alibis and fleeting suspects. Eliza nodded, recalling the case from her preparatory reading. Bella Wright, pedaling through rural lanes, met a gruesome end. The accused, Ronald Light, was acquitted despite damning evidence, a revolver matching the bullet. Could something similar have happened here? She asked.
Lydia leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. Not bicycles, but carts. In 24, a dairymaid named Violet was found bludgeoned by the mill pond. Her beau claimed he'd seen a stranger fleeing on horseback, but tracks led nowhere. Case closed as robbery gone wrong, her purse untouched. Folks reckoned it was jealousy. Violet had eyes for the miller's son. The tale unfolded vividly. Violet, with her auburn curls and freckled cheeks, delivering milk at dawn, her cries muffled by the rushing water, body discovered by dawn fishermen. No weapon found, only a bloodied stone that could have been from the bank. Eliza imagined Christie hearing such yarns over tea, filing them away for her intricate webs of deceit. But the archives held more than paper trails.
Lydia mentioned a reclusive historian, Dr. Alistair Crowe, who lived on the village outskirts in a rambling manor called Raven's Nest. "He's the one for spine-tinglers," she said, "collected oral histories that never made official records. Bit of a hermit, mind. Lost his wife years ago. Buried himself in the past. If you're keen, I can ring him." Eliza agreed, curiosity piqued. After a quick call, Dr. Crowe consented to a visit. The walk to Raven's Nest took her along a winding path bordered by hawthorn hedges buzzing with bees. The manor loomed ahead, its stone facade weathered by centuries, gargoyles leering from the eaves like silent guardians. Knocking on the heavy oak door, she was greeted by a tall, gaunt man in his 70s, with a shock of white hair and eyes shadowed by bushy brows. "Miss Thorne, come in before the chill seeps in." His voice was gravelly, laced with a faint Scottish burr. The interior was a labyrinth of bookshelves, globes, and curios. A stuffed raven perched on a pedestal, its glass eyes glinting. He led her to a study warmed by a peat fire, where leather armchairs invited sinking into oblivion. Over sherry, amber liquid that burned pleasantly, Eliza outlined her research. Dr. Crowe steepled his fingers, gazing into the flames. St. Mary Mead, a fiction, but rooted in truth. Christie visited these parts in the 20s, during her disappearance scandal. Oh yes, she vanished for days in 26, found in Harrogate. But before that, she wandered our lanes, absorbing the atmosphere. The unsolved crimes fed her muse. He launched into tales with the flair of a storyteller. First, the 1922 strangling of Vicar Elias Hargrove, not the one Silas mentioned, but a different cleric in a neighboring hamlet. Found in his vestry, rosary beads twisted around his throat like a noose. Suicide, they said, despondent over parish debts. But his diary, I have a copy, spoke of blackmail. A parishioner threatening to expose an affair. No arrests. The suspect fled to Australia. Eliza leaned forward, the fire's crackle underscoring his words. This diverged from the vicarage murder she'd heard. Here, faith intertwined with forbidden passion. Dr. Crowe continued with the 1927 case of the phantom poacher. A gamekeeper shot in the woods, arrow through the heart. Blamed on poachers, but the fletching matched the squire's own archery set. "Inheritance dispute," Crowe murmured. "The heir stood to gain, but alibis held. Witnesses sworn by fear or favor." These anecdotes blended seamlessly with Christie's style. Misdirection, hidden motives, the veneer of respectability cracking under scrutiny. But Dr. Crowe saved his most chilling for last, the 1929 Whispering Woods incident. A group of children playing hide-and-seek stumbled upon a shallow grave, unearthing the body of a traveling salesman, throat slit ear to ear. His valise contained love letters to a local barmaid who vanished the same night. Folks heard whispers in the woods afterward, ghostly pleas for justice, unsolved. The constable botched the scene, trampling evidence. As the afternoon waned, tension built. Dr. Crowe's tales grew more animated, his gestures casting elongated shadows on the walls. Eliza felt a prickle at her neck, as if the room's artifacts watched. "Why do these cluster here?" she asked. "Coincidence, or something in the soil?" He chuckled darkly. "Human nature, my dear. Villages like this breed secrets. Limited suspects, infinite grudges. Christie amplified it, but the seeds were real." Emboldened, she shared the diary from Willow Cottage. Dr. Crowe examined it, his face paling. Agnes Larkin's hand. She was the herbalist I mentioned earlier. This curse she rants about. Likely delirium from her own potions. But let's debunk it properly. Together they constructed a timeline on his cluttered desk, using pins and string to connect dates. Agnes's entries aligned with the poisonings, but cross-referencing weather logs showed a drought that indeed contaminated wells. Arsenic leached from the earth naturally. One myth shattered, no malevolent brewer, just tragic misfortune. Eliza felt a rush of satisfaction. Facts triumphed over folklore. "Thank you, Doctor. This grounds my story. No curses, just coincidence amplifying the murder capital myth. He nodded, escorting her out as dusk fell. Mind the path. It's treacherous in the dim. Stepping into the cooling air, Eliza glanced back. Raven's nest silhouetted against the twilight sky, its windows like watchful eyes. As she navigated the hedgerows, a rustle caught her ear. Not wind, but footsteps. Heart thudding, she quickened her pace. A shadowy figure darted behind a tree, cloaked in darkness. Was it a villager, or someone unnerved by her probing? The figure melted away, leaving only the echo of unease. Back at the inn, Eliza sipped a nightcap by the fire. The debunked myth a neat resolution. The village's dark past was mere happenstance, fodder for Christie's genius. Yet the shadowy watcher lingered in her thoughts, a subtle harbinger that her inquiries might stir more than dust.
Chapter 3. Tea-time confessions and hidden motives. The first rays of dawn pierced the mist-shrouded fields of Netherwallop, turning the dew into a shimmering veil that clung to every blade of grass. Eliza Thorne awoke with a start, the shadowy figure from the previous evening's walk lingering in her dreams like an uninvited guest. She shook it off as paranoia. After all, villages like this thrived on watchful eyes, not malice. Her notebook, brimming with archival notes and Dr. Crow's anecdotes, lay open on the bedside table, a roadmap to today's pursuits. The human element. Facts were one thing, but the pulse of St. Mary Mead's fictional lethality beat in the hearts of its inspirations, the villagers themselves. Dressed in a practical wool sweater against the morning chill, Eliza ventured downstairs for breakfast. Harold, the innkeeper, served her porridge laced with honey and fresh berries, his mustache twitching with curiosity. "Off sleuthing again, miss? Mind the locals, they've tongues sharper than thorns." She smiled, pocketing a scone for the road. Her plan was to start at the post office, a hub of gossip, where letters and rumors flowed in equal measure. The building was a quaint red brick affair with a bell that tinkled like a conspirator's whisper upon entry. Behind the counter stood postmistress Vera Larkin, a woman in her 60s, with curls pinned like coiled springs and eyes that darted like minnows in a stream. Her apron was dotted with ink stains, badges of her trade. "Good morning," Eliza began, introducing herself and her Christie-inspired quest. "I'm exploring how real villages like this fueled her stories. Care to share any local lore?" Vera's face lit up like a lantern in fog. "Lore, darling? I've got barrels of it. Pull up a stool, the mail can wait." She bustled about, fetching a tray of biscuits and a steaming pot of peppermint tea, its aroma cutting through the musty scent of stamps and envelopes. As they settled, Vera launched into her tales with the gusto of a born raconteur. "You know, Christie's Marple could have been modeled on my great-aunt Mabel. Sharp as a tack, that one. Back in the 40s, post-war scramble, there was the flap over the Hawthorne inheritance. Old Lord Hawthorne, bedridden tyrant, left his estate to his valet instead of his scheming niece. Whispers flew, forged will, they said. The niece, Clarissa, hosted lavish teas to rally sympathy, but Mabel overheard her plotting with a shady solicitor. Turned out the valet was his illegitimate son. Scandal averted, but not before fists nearly flew at the village hall." Eliza scribbled notes, the biscuit crumbling sweetly on her tongue. This mirrored Christie's inheritance twists in a pocketful of rye, but with a post-war flavor, rationing woes amplifying greed. "Did it ever turn violent?" she probed. Vera leaned in, her voice dropping to a theatrical hush. "Oh, nearly. Clarissa spiked the solicitor's brandy with laudanum, meant to loosen his tongue, but he collapsed foaming. Accident, ruled the doctor, but Mabel swore it was spite. Clarissa fled to London, estate intact for the valet. Villages like ours Jealousy simmers like stew left too long on the hob." Their chat flowed into lighter waters. Vera's own escapades, like the time she intercepted a love letter meant for the wrong spouse, averting a duel of words. Laughter bubbled up, easing the undercurrent of intrigue. But as Eliza prepared to leave, Vera slipped her a sealed envelope. "For your eyes only. Old clippings from the Post's archives, feuds that never made the papers." Energized by the encounter, Eliza headed next to the village green, where a retired colonel named Bertram Finch held court on a weathered bench, his cane tapping rhythms like Morse code. He was a relic of empire, tweed jacket, handlebar mustache waxed to precision, eyes gleaming with the fire of old campaigns. Spotting her approach, he boomed, "You there! The London scribbler, eh? Heard you're digging into our murky past. Sit, sit, I've stories that'll make your ink run." Eliza obliged, the grass soft underfoot. Bertram wasted no time, his voice carrying the cadence of parade ground commands. "Christie's colonels, pale imitations of chaps like me. Take the 1950s intrigue at the old mill. Water rights dispute between Farmer Giles and the upstart brewer Harlan. Giles claimed ancient deeds, Harlan bribed the surveyor. Tensions boiled at the harvest fete, accusations hurled over cider mugs. That night, Harlan's mill wheel jammed with a body. Giles's son, drowned. Sabotage, cried Harlan. Accident, countered the constable. The tale unfolded with military precision. Harlan's alibis checked out. He was at a poker game. But whispers pointed to a hired hand from the city. Bertram painted vivid scenes of lantern-lit searches along the riverbank, the water churning like a beast awakened. Inheritance angle? Harlan stood to gain the land if Giles folded, but proof? Slippery as eels. Christie would have spun it into a locked-room puzzle, but here it was open fields and closed mouths. Eliza interjected with questions, drawing parallels to The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, where village fates mask deeper vendettas. Bertram nodded approvingly. Spot on. Our quirks amplified in her pages. The isolation breeds ingenuity in mischief, no big city distractions. As the sun climbed, Bertram shared a personal vignette, his own brush with scandal in the 60s, when a rival officer accused him of embezzling regimental funds during a charity ball. Danced the night away, but the ledger showed discrepancies. Turned out, the caterer skimmed the pot. I confronted him in the marquee, words sharper than bayonets. He confessed over sherry, tears and all. No blood, but egos bruised aplenty. Their dialogue crackled with wit, Bertram's anecdotes laced with self-deprecating humor. I'm no Marple, but I've a nose for rot. Villages, petri dishes for human folly. Eliza felt the story deepening. These weren't just echoes of Christie. They were living testaments to why St. Mary Mead endured as fiction's deadliest nook. Buoyed by the colonel's vigor, Eliza wandered to the edge of the green where a cluster of cottages huddled like gossiping hens. One stood out, Rosewood House, home to the Whittaker family, known for their perennial flower shows and perennial squabbles. Drawn by a tip from Vera about ongoing tensions, she knocked. The door creaked open to reveal Amelia Whittaker, a spry woman in her 40s, with soil-stained gloves and a welcoming smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Come in, dear. Tea? I've just baked lemon drizzle. The kitchen was a haven of floral china and hanging herbs, the air sweet with citrus. Amelia poured steaming cups, her hands trembling slightly. You're the journalist. Word travels fast. What sparks your interest in our little corner?
Eliza explained, steering toward family dynamics in Christie's works. Amelia's demeanor shifted, a flicker of hesitation. Families here, tangled as bindweed. My late uncle, Reginald Whittaker, died last year, left the house to me over my cousin Theo. Inheritance Row erupted like a storm. Theo claimed forgery. I said fair play. We've barely spoken since. As they sipped, Amelia unraveled the thread. Reginald, a reclusive painter, altered his will after discovering Theo's gambling debts. He painted secrets into his canvases, hidden messages in the brushstrokes. One showed Theo pawning family heirlooms. I found it in the attic, confronted him at Christmas dinner. Shouts echoed, plates flew, but proof ironclad. Theo stormed out, vowing revenge. The confession hung heavy, mirroring Christie's familial betrayals in Nemesis. Eliza probed gently. Any untoward incidents since? Amelia hesitated, then whispered, "Anonymous notes, threats slipped under doors. The past digs its own grave. I ignored them, but last month my prize roses wilted overnight. Poisoned, the gardener said. Theo's doing? Who knows?" Tension thickened as the door burst open. Theo Whitaker strode in, a burly man with a florid face and clenched fists. "Amelia, what's this stranger doing here?" His eyes narrowed at Eliza. "Stirring pots, are we?" The air crackled with hostility. Amelia stood, voice steady. "Theo, she's researching Christie. Our family's no secret." Theo snorted. "Research? More like meddling. Uncle's will was tampered. Your handiwork, sister dear. I saw you with the solicitor." Accusations flew like arrows. Amelia defending her integrity, Theo hurling barbs about her greedy grasp. Eliza, caught in the crossfire, rose instinctively. "Wait, let's talk this out. Feuds like this echo Christie's plots, but they end in resolution, not ruin." Theo rounded on her. "What do you know? Outsider waltzing in, unearthing dirt." Amelia's eyes flashed. "Enough! Theo, the will was witnessed, fair and square. Your debts buried you, not me." The argument peaked, voices overlapping in a cacophony of hurt. Theo slammed a fist on the table, rattling cups. "You stole my birthright! Notes? I sent none. Probably your guilty conscience." Eliza interjected, her journalist's calm cutting through. "Stop. Theo, if not you, who? Amelia, show him the painting, proof in pigment." Reluctantly, Amelia fetched the canvas from upstairs, a landscape with subtle figures. Theo at a card table, chips spilling like confessions. Theo stared, color draining. I never knew he captured that, but the notes." A revelation dawned. "The gardener," Amelia murmured, "jealous of my wins at the show. He admitted tampering with rivals' plots last year." Theo softened. "And the threats? His bid to drive a wedge, inherit scraps if we tore apart?" Eliza nodded, piecing it. Classic misdirection. "Talk to him. Together." The siblings exchanged glances, the storm subsiding. Theo extended his hand. "Truce, for Uncle's sake?" Amelia clasped it, tears welling. "Truce, family endures." As harmony restored, Eliza felt a glow of mediation's triumph. The Whitakers shared a reconciliatory hug, the kitchen warming anew. But amid the relief, Eliza's mind whirled. These interpersonal webs hinted at broader veils. The anonymous notes, the poisons, echoes of a modern scheme, perhaps shielding Netherwallop's facade from prying eyes like hers. Bidding farewell, she stepped into the fading light, the green bathed in amber hues. Back at the inn, over a solitary supper of shepherd's pie, she reflected. The day's confessions peeled layers, revealing how Christie's amplifications stemmed from raw human drama. Yet suspicions gnawed. Was the shadowy watcher from before tied to this, a cover-up brewing, protecting Netherwallop's facade? Satisfied with the emotional mending she'd facilitated, Eliza retired, the chapter of feuds closed neatly. But the narrative's underbelly pulsed onward, whispering of concealed perils ahead.
Chapter 4. Miss Marple's Shadow,
The sleuth's legacy. The mist clung to Nether Wallop like a reluctant lover as Eliza Thorne stepped out of the Fox and Hounds, her breath forming fleeting clouds in the crisp autumn air. The reconciliations of the previous day, the Whitakers' mended rift, had left her with a sense of quiet triumph, but also a nagging itch. The village's secrets weren't just historical footnotes, they pulsed with a legacy that extended beyond Christie's pages. Today, she aimed to chase the shadow of Miss Marple herself, delving into the author's life to understand how an unassuming sleuth became the lens through which mundane rural existence transformed into a cauldron of intrigue. It was time to go meta, to peel back the layers of inspiration and psychology that made St. Mary Mead synonymous with sly lethality. Eliza's itinerary began with a pilgrimage to Torquay, Christie's birthplace, a 2-hour drive southward along winding coastal roads. She rented a compact car from a local garage, its engine purring like a contented cat as she navigated the lanes, flanked by golden gorse and distant glimpses of the sea. The journey allowed her mind to wander. Why do small communities, with their tight-knit bonds, so often breed the most venomous crimes? Psychologists she'd skimmed in her preparatory notes suggested it was the pressure cooker effect. Limited escapes, amplified grudges, where every glance carried weight. Arriving in Torquay, the seaside town unfolded like a Victorian postcard. Pastel villas perched on cliffs, the harbor dotted with bobbing yachts. Eliza parked near the Agatha Christie Mile, a trail marking key sites from the author's youth. She started at Greenway House, Christie's holiday home turned museum, its white facade gleaming under the sun like polished ivory. The garden sloped toward the River Dart, alive with the rustle of leaves and the distant call of gulls. A guide, a cheerful woman named Fiona with a brooch shaped like a poison vial, led a small tour group. Eliza joined seamlessly, her notebook disguised as a tourist's journal. Agatha spent summers here, Fiona explained, gesturing to the boathouse where Christie plotted Dead Man's Folly. She drew from the landscape, the isolation, the hidden coves perfect for smuggling secrets or bodies. As they wandered the manicured lawns, Eliza posed a question. How did her experiences shape Miss Marple, that keen observation in quiet settings? Fiona's eyes sparkled. Marple was born from Agatha's own acuity. As a girl, she watched people on trains, in tea rooms, deciphering lives from snippets. In villages, everyone knows everyone, yet secrets thrive in plain sight. Psychology plays in. The bystander effect reversed. In small groups, suspicion festers unchecked. Eliza nodded, absorbing the insight. The group moved to the library, shelves lined with first editions. Here, Fiona shared a lesser-known tidbit. Christie's wartime work as a pharmacist's assistant, dispensing drugs that informed her poison plots. Arsenic, strychnine, she knew their whispers. Marple embodies that, the overlooked woman wielding knowledge like a weapon. Inspired, Eliza lingered after the tour, chatting with Fiona over cucumber sandwiches in the tea room. Any local legends that fed her muse? She asked. Fiona leaned forward, her voice a conspiratorial murmur. Oh, the 1911 Torquay vanishing. A hotelier disappeared mid-season, safe cracked but empty. Rumors of embezzlement, a lover's flight. Unsolved, but Agatha was a teen then, likely overheard the buzz at family dinners. Echoes in Marple's cases, where vanishings mask deeper deceptions. The conversation veered into psychology, why rural idyls spawn crime. Proximity breeds contempt, Fiona mused. In cities, anonymity shields. Here, every slight is personal. Studies show higher per capita intrigue in hamlets. Feuds over fences escalate to felonies. Eliza jotted furiously, the pieces clicking. St. Mary Mead's murder rate wasn't anomaly, it was amplification of real dynamics. Thanking Fiona, she drove next to Ashfield, Christie's childhood home, now a plaque-marked site. The house stood modest, windows like watchful eyes. Standing there, Eliza imagined young Agatha peering out, cataloging neighbors' quirks, the basis for Marple's window-gazing deductions.
But theory begged practice. Back in Nether Wallop by midday, Eliza decided to embody Marple, role-playing to test the sleuth's methods on a contemporary conundrum. Whispers at the inn hinted at a spate of minor thefts, trinkets vanishing from market stalls, nothing major, but enough to ruffle feathers. Petty pilfering, Harold had grumbled over breakfast, keeps the bobbies busy. Eliza positioned herself at a cafe overlooking the market square, a hubbub of vendors hawking cheeses, jams, and handmade crafts. Donning a borrowed shawl from the inn, itchy wool that smelled of lavender, she perched on a wrought iron chair, sipping chamomile tea with the air of a benign grandmother. Her eyes, hidden behind oversized sunglasses, scanned the crowd, a baker bellowing prices, a florist arranging bouquets, children darting like minnows. Observation was key, Marple style. Eliza noted patterns. The baker's stall, laden with golden loaves, drew steady customers. Nearby, a jewelry vendor named Silas, not the groundskeeper, a wiry youth with tattoos peeking from his sleeves, fidgeted, his display of silver charms glinting. A group of teens loitered nearby, laughing raucously. One, a lanky boy with tousled hair and a backpack slung low, kept glancing at the stalls. Minutes ticked by, the square alive with barter and banter. Then movement. The lanky teen, whom Eliza dubbed Backpack Bandit, edged closer to the jewelry stand while Silas haggled with a customer. A swift hand dipped. A charm vanished into his pocket. Eliza's heart raced. Marple would wait, gather threads. She trailed him discreetly as he sauntered away, weaving through the crowd like a shadow. He met two accomplices at the square's edge, a girl with neon streaks in her hair and a stocky lad chewing gum. They huddled, divvying spoils, a brooch, a wallet lifted from the baker. Easy pickings, Backpack Bandit smirked. Old fogies never notice. Eliza, channeling Marple's unassuming charm, approached with a feigned limp. "Excuse me, dears, lost my way. Could you point to the church?" They startled, the girl pocketing a necklace hastily. That way?" Stocky lad muttered, pointing vaguely. Eliza smiled sweetly. "Such helpful youth. But what's that in your bag? It looks like Mrs. Hargrove's locket. She's distraught over it." Backpack Bandit's face paled. "What? No idea." "Oh, but I saw. From my bench clear as day. The charm from Silas, the wallet from the baker. Petty, yes, but patterns emerge. You hit the market every Saturday, don't you? Building a nest egg for... what, that scooter you've been eyeing at the garage?" The trio exchanged panicked glances. Neon Girl stammered, "How? How'd you?" "Observation, my dears, like knitting, stitch by stitch. Return the goods, and we'll call it youthful folly. No need for constables." Deflated, they complied, emptying pockets. Backpack Bandit grumbled, "You're like that old detective lady in books." Eliza chuckled inwardly, mission accomplished. Escorting them back, she oversaw apologies. Silas reclaimed his charm with a gruff nod, the baker his wallet with relief. The villagers buzzed, dubbing Eliza Nether's new Marple. Her confidence soared. Embodying the sleuth proved the legacy's power. Ordinary eyes unveiling extraordinary truths. But triumph carried a shadow. As the market wound down, Eliza noticed a figure in a hooded coat lingering by the fountain, gaze fixed on her. Not the previous watcher. This one was slighter, movements deliberate. Unease prickled. Was her meddling attracting unwanted attention? Seeking deeper context, Eliza visited the local library, a cozy nook in the old schoolhouse with creaking floors and the faint scent of polished wood. The librarian, Mr. Elias Torn, a distant cousin, he claimed with a wink, was a font of Christie lore. "Marple's shadow stretches long," he said, pulling rare biographies from locked cabinets. Over herbal infusions, nettle for clarity, he insisted, they discussed Christie's psychological acumen. She consulted experts on the mind, Elias revealed. Freud's influence indirect but evident. repressed desires erupting in violence. In villages, social conformity stifles, leading to explosive outlets. Eliza shared her theft-solving escapade. Elias laughed. "Bravo! Marple would approve." But consider the meta-layer. Christie's own mysteries, her 1926 disappearance, 11 days gone, amnesia claimed. Some say staged, drawing from real abductions she'd researched. The tale intrigued. Christie, post-divorce turmoil, vanishing to Harrogate Spa under a pseudonym. Inspiration looped back, her life mirroring plots echoing life. As evening fell, Elias mentioned a clandestine group, the Marple Admirers Society, enthusiasts who met monthly to dissect cases. They role-play, too, harmless fun, but whispers of overzealous members preserving legacies at any cost. Intrigued, Eliza attended their gathering at a secluded barn on the village's fringe, lanterns flickering like fireflies. The group was eclectic. A schoolteacher, a farmer, even Dr. Crow from before, his white hair aglow. They welcomed her, sharing wine and theories. Marple's genius, empathy weaponized, the teacher argued. She sees through facades because she's one of them, unthreatening. Debate ensued. Why villages over cities? The farmer boomed. No distractions. Every act ripples. Eliza contributed her insights, earning nods. But tension simmered when a masked member, voice muffled, hinted at protecting the shadow. Some legacies demand guardianship. Intruders beware. The words chilled. Was this tied to the hooded figure? As the meeting dispersed, Eliza confronted Dr. Crow privately. "That masked one, know them?" He sighed. Enthusiasts gone rogue. Rumors of staging events to mimic Christie, harmless pranks mostly, but lately, edgier. Clues coalesced. The thefts, perhaps, engineered to test sleuths. Her watcher, a society scout. Confidence buoyed from the day's victory, yet a conspiracy loomed, past authors' echoes in present schemes. Retiring to the inn under starlit skies, Eliza pondered. Marple's legacy wasn't just detection, it was the peril of peering too deep. Satisfied with her immersive triumph, she slept, the chapter's arcs resolved, yet threads dangled toward greater dangers.
Chapter 5. The Curse Unveiled. Fiction bleeds into reality. The dawn broke over Nether Wallop with a fiery glow, painting the thatched roofs in hues of amber and rose, as if the village itself blushed at its secrets. Eliza Thorne sat at the small writing desk in her room at the Fox and Hounds, the leather-bound diary from Willow Cottage open before her. Its cryptic warnings of a curse had seemed fanciful at first, but the previous day's encounters, the hooded figure at the market, the cryptic warnings from the Marple Admirers Society, had planted seeds of doubt. Her journalist's instincts buzzed. The line between Christie's fictional St. Mary Mead and Nether Wallop's reality was blurring, and she was determined to uncover why. Today she would chase the thread of the curse Agnes Larkin had scribbled about decades ago. Was it mere superstition, or a cover for something tangible? Eliza's plan was to infiltrate the underbelly of the village's modern quirks, seeking out those who might perpetuate its deadly mystique. She dressed in a practical tweed blazer and sturdy boots, ready for a day that might lead her into the wilder edges of Nether Wallop. A quick breakfast of smoked kippers and toast, served by Harold with a knowing wink, off to stir the hornet's nest, fueled her resolve. Her first stop was the village hall, a stone building where notices fluttered on a corkboard like trapped moths. Among flyers for knitting circles and jumble sales, one caught her eye, a faded poster for the Nether Wallop Mystery Nights, hosted by a group called the Shadow Players. The text promised immersive Christie-inspired reenactments to keep the village's legacy alive. The date was tonight, at dusk, in the old quarry beyond the woods. Eliza's pulse quickened. This was no coincidence.
The Marple admirers had hinted at such theatrics, and the masked member's warning echoed, "Intruders, beware." She pocketed a torn corner of the poster, noting the contact name, Clara Henshaw, a local tour guide with a flair for the dramatic. Eliza had overheard her name at the market, praised for her ghost walks, but whispered about as too fond of the spotlight. Tracking her down proved easy. Clara was setting up a stall near the church, her auburn hair pinned under a wide-brimmed hat, her table laden with maps and pamphlets titled Haunted Nether Wallop. "Miss Henshaw," Eliza approached, offering a warm smile. "I'm Eliza Thorne, researching Agatha Christie's ties to the village. Your mystery nights sound intriguing. Mind telling me more?" Clara's eyes lit up, her voice a melodious lilt. "Oh, a sleuth after my own heart. The shadow players are my passion project. We stage mock murders, poisoned teas, staged stabbings, all in good fun to honor Christie. Tourists eat it up, and it keeps our little hamlet on the map." Eliza nodded, sensing an opening. "Sounds thrilling, but I've heard whispers of a curse, like in Agnes Larkin's diary. Any truth to it, or just fuel for your shows?" Clara's smile tightened, her fingers fidgeting with a pamphlet. "Agnes, poor soul, addled by her own bruise. The curse is folklore, village nonsense about doomed families and vengeful spirits. We use it for atmosphere, nothing more." Her deflection was too quick, her eyes darting to the crowd. Eliza pressed gently. "Yet your events mimic real crimes, poisonings, vanishings. Ever worry you're tempting fate?" Clara laughed, a touch shrill. "Fate? We're entertainers, not sorcerers. Join us tonight, see for yourself. Starts at 7 by the quarry's edge." Eliza agreed, her mind racing. Clara's charm masked unease, and the shadow player's obsession with reenactments hinted at deeper motives. To prepare, she visited the local pub, the Black Swan, a low-ceilinged den where ale-soaked conversations flowed freely. The barman, a grizzled man named Tom with a scar across his knuckles, served her a pint of cloudy cider. He said, polishing a glass, "Heard you're sniffing about our ghosts. Careful, some shadows bite." Over the pint, Eliza probed about the players. Tom leaned close, his voice a gravelly murmur. "Clara's lot, huh? They're a mixed bag. Most are harmless, teaches, shopkeepers, playing detective. But their leader calls himself the director, thinks he's channeling Christie's spirit. Last month, one of their murders went awry. Fake blood replaced with pig's blood, spooked the crowd. Clara swore it was a prank, but..." Eliza's pen paused mid-scribble. "Any injuries?"
"Not yet," Tom said darkly, "but they're pushing it. The director's got a temper, ran off a journalist last year for asking too many questions." The warning landed like a stone in still water. Eliza thanked him, her resolve hardening. The quarry event was her chance to unmask this director and test the curse's weight. As afternoon waned, she explored the village outskirts, following a trail to the quarry, a jagged scar in the earth, its cliffs looming like silent sentinels. The path wound through whispering woods, where sunlight barely pierced the canopy and the air carried a damp chill. Every snap of a twig set her nerves alight, memories of the hooded figure and masked warnings swirling. At the quarry's edge, she found signs of preparation: lanterns strung between trees, a makeshift stage with props, a velvet curtain, a table set for a faux tea party. Footprints crisscrossed the dirt, fresh and varied. She crouched, examining them when a voice startled her. "Early bird, aren't you?" Clara emerged, now in a black cloak, her hat swapped for a scarf tied like a mourner's veil. "Come to help set up?" Eliza stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "Just scouting. This place feels heavy. Any truth to the woods whispers?" Clara's laugh was brittle. "Ghost stories sell tickets. Ready for a show? We're doing The Moving Finger, poison pen letters, a village unraveling." The choice was telling. Christie's tale of anonymous threats mirrored the Whitakers' recent spat. As dusk fell, villagers and tourists gathered, their chatter and nervous hum. The shadow players emerged in costumes, maids, vicars, jilted lovers, led by a figure in a hooded robe, face obscured. The director. His voice boomed, reciting lines about betrayal and retribution. The crowd enthralled. The reenactment began. A young actress, playing a schoolteacher, received a venomous letter accusing her of infidelity. She collapsed, clutching a teacup laced with poison. Red syrup, Eliza noted. The scene was gripping, the actor's fervor almost too real. But midway, a scream pierced the script, not staged, but raw. A prop knife, meant to be rubber, gleamed metallic in the lantern light. The actor wielding it, a wiry man dressed as a spurned suitor, froze, his face ashen. "Stop!" Eliza shouted, instincts kicking in. She rushed the stage, snatching the blade. It was real, its edge glinting wickedly. The crowd gasped, the director barking orders to resume, but chaos erupted. The actress, unharmed but shaken, fled backstage, while the suitor stammered, "I didn't know, it was in the prop box." Eliza's heart pounded. This was no accident. She cornered Clara, who was wringing her hands. "What's going on? That knife could have killed her." Clara's composure cracked. "I don't know. The director handles props. He's obsessed with authenticity, says it honors Christie. I thought he meant costumes." The director approached, hood still up. His voice was a low growl. "You're disrupting our art, Miss Thorne. Leave or face consequences." Eliza stood her ground, channeling Marple's steel. "Art? This is reckless endangerment. Who are you and why sabotage your own show?" He hesitated, then threw back his hood, revealing a gaunt man in his 50s with piercing gray eyes and a scar across his temple. Reginald Voss, a local historian rumored to be Clara's mentor. "This village thrives on its legend," he snapped. "Christie made us immortal. You threaten that with your digging." Eliza's mind raced, connecting dots. The director's zeal, the blood prank, the watchers trailing her. "Theo," she called, striding over, "what's your stake here?" Theo flinched, hands in pockets. "Nothing, just watching. I'm no player." But his shifty eyes betrayed him. Eliza pressed, voice low. "You swapped the knife, didn't you? Revenge for the inheritance? Or to scare Clara off her game?" Theo crumbled, confession spilling. "I wanted to rattle them. Clara's profiting off our family's pain, turning our feuds into her shows. I slipped in the knife, thought it would be found before use. I swear no harm meant." The crowd murmured, Clara sobbing. Eliza turned to Voss. "This ends now. Your legacy nearly killed someone. Call the police or I will." Voss deflated, nodding. "Enough. I pushed too far." As lanterns dimmed, Eliza orchestrated order. Clara calmed the crowd, Theo surrendered the knife, and the local constable arrived, a burly officer named Jenkins. He took statements, cuffing Theo for reckless endangerment. Voss, chastened, admitted to orchestrating minor pranks, fake blood, eerie notes, to fuel the curse myth, but denied the knife swap. "I wanted mystery, not murder," he whispered. Eliza's adrenaline ebbed, the quarry now a stage of resolution. The shadow players disbanded for the night, tourists dispersing with tales to tell. Clara, tearful, thanked Eliza. "You saved us from ourselves. I'll end the mystery nights. No more games." Back at the inn, under the glow of a single lamp, Eliza sipped mulled wine, piecing together her findings. The curse was a fabrication, a blend of Agnes's ravings and Voss's theatrics, amplified by small-town rivalries like Theo's. St. Mary Maid's lethality was fiction's mirror to human folly, jealousy, greed, obsession, not a supernatural hex. Her article would expose this, framing Netherwallop as a crucible of human nature, not a haunted hollow. Yet a question lingered. Was the curse truly dead, or did its roots burrow deeper into the village's psyche? The watchers, the pranks, were they all Voss's doing, or signs of a broader conspiracy shielding Netherwallop's facade?
For now, the night's chaos was resolved, a satisfying knot untied.
but Eliza sensed the story's heart still beat, awaiting her final reckoning.
Chapter 6. Reflections in the Rose Garden. The sun hung low over Nether Wallop, its golden rays weaving through the hedgerows like threads in a tapestry, as Eliza Thorne walked the winding path to the rose garden behind St. Margaret's Church. The garden, whispered to be the real-world echo of Miss Marple's own in St. Mary Mead, was a riot of blooms, crimson, blush, and ivory petals swaying in the late September breeze. After days of unraveling the village's secrets, from dusty archives to staged quarry dramas, Eliza sought this quiet haven to reflect. The curse of Nether Wallop, revealed as a concoction of folklore and human folly, had been laid bare. But its deeper truth, why such a place captivated imaginations with tales of malice, beckoned her to this final chapter. Eliza carried her notebook, now thick with scribbles, historical tragedies mirroring Christie's plots, village feuds fueled by envy, and the shadow player's reckless bid to immortalize a myth. The diary of Agnes Larkin, once a haunting spectre, now rested in her satchel, its ramblings demystified as the ravings of a lonely woman twisted by time into a legend. Yet, as she stepped into the garden, the air heavy with the scent of roses and earth, Eliza felt the weight of her journey. This was no mere assignment. It was a confrontation with the universal shadows that lurked beneath idyllic facades. The garden was a labyrinth of trellises, each arch draped with climbing roses that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. A stone bench, weathered by decades, sat at the center, flanked by a sundial etched with Latin, Tempus Fugit. Eliza settled there, her fingers tracing the cool stone, imagining Jane Marple here, knitting needles clicking as she pieced together human motives. The solitude was a balm, but her mind churned. How did a village, so serene on the surface, inspire fiction's deadliest hamlet? Her reverie broke as footsteps crunched on the gravel path. Mrs. Edith Poole, the silver-haired gossip from the tea-room days ago, approached, a basket of clipped roses in hand. Her floral dress fluttered, and her eyes crinkled with recognition. "Miss Thorne, found our little Eden, have you? Perfect spot for pondering." Eliza smiled, gesturing to the bench. "It's peaceful. I'm wrapping up my research, trying to understand why St. Mary Mead, and Nether Wallop by extension, feels so deadly in Christie's hands." Edith sat, setting her basket down with a sigh. "Deadly? Oh, it's the quiet that does it, dear. In cities, noise drowns out the heart's darker beats. Here, every whisper's amplified. Agatha saw that. Her Marple was a mirror, reflecting what we'd rather hide." Their conversation flowed like the nearby stream, gentle yet probing. Edith shared a tale from her youth, unconnected to prior scandals, the 1960s feud over the church's restoration fund. Vicar Ramsay, bless him, wanted a new roof, but old Mrs. Carver, who fancied herself the village matriarch, insisted on stained glass. Money vanished, petty theft they thought, until Ramsay caught Carver's nephew pocketing donations. No fists flew, but the shame drove her to her grave. Agatha would have spun it into a poison plot. Eliza nodded, seeing the pattern. Small stakes, colossal consequences. It's like the village magnifies slights into sins. Edith's laugh was soft, like petals falling. Exactly. We're a petri dish for passion, love, hate, greed. Marple's genius was seeing it all from a garden like this. As Edith trimmed a rose, Eliza opened her notebook, sketching a thesis for her article. St. Mary Mead isn't cursed, it's human. Nether Wallop's history, its feuds, thefts, betrayals, feeds Christie's fiction, proving malice thrives where intimacy binds. The words felt right, a culmination of her findings, but a flicker of doubt remained. Had she truly unearthed all the village's shadows?
Her thoughts were interrupted by a young boy, no older than 10, darting through the garden with a kite trailing like a comet's tail. He paused, wide-eyed, at the sight of strangers. "You the detective lady?" he asked, voice piping. "Granny says you stopped the bad play at the quarry." Eliza chuckled, warmth spreading. "Not quite a detective, but I helped. What's your name?" "Tommy," he said, puffing his chest. "I want to be like Miss Marple when I grow up. Solve mysteries." Edith ruffled his hair. "Off with you, Tommy. Let the lady think." But Tommy lingered, eager. "There's a mystery now. Someone's been carving funny signs on the old oak by the river. Granny says it's the curse waking up." Eliza's ears pricked. Another curse echo? She thanked Edith, promising to return, and followed Tommy to the riverbank, where the oak stood gnarled and ancient, its bark etched with crude symbols, spirals and crosses, like runes from a forgotten tongue. They were fresh, sap still weeping. Tommy pointed excitedly. "See? Spooky, right?"
Eliza crouched, her journalist's lens sharpening. Not spooky, deliberate. The carvings weren't random. They mimicked sigils from Agnes's diary, sketches she'd dismissed as delirium. Had someone revived the myth post-quarry fiasco? She snapped photos, her mind racing. This wasn't Voss or Theo's work. Both were under scrutiny now. A new player, perhaps, or a lingering shadow player defiant of the group's disbandment. Back at the village, Eliza sought Clara Henshaw, the former tour guide, now subdued after the quarry incident. She found her at the bakery, kneading dough with a vigor that spoke of pent-up nerves. Flour dusted Clara's cheeks like a ghostly mask as she greeted Eliza. "Back for more? I'm done with mysteries. Baking's safer." Eliza cut to the chase, showing the photos. "These carvings, seen them before? They're like Agnes's diary sketches. Someone's keeping the curse alive." Clara's hands stilled, her eyes widening. Those look like our old props. The shadow players used symbols for ambiance, Voss's idea. But we stopped. I swear, I've been here, elbows in flour since that night." Her sincerity rang true, but Eliza pressed. "Anyone else in your group who might persist? Someone loyal to the legacy?" Clara hesitated, then whispered, "Marianne Locke. She was Voss's shadow, quiet, intense. Left the players after the quarry, furious we shut down. She's a folklorist, lives by the old mill. If anyone's stirring this, it's her." The lead was a spark in the dark. Eliza thanked Clara and headed to the mill, a crumbling relic by the river Test, its wheel long stilled, but mossy timbers whispering of bygone days. Marianne's cottage nearby was a contrast, neat with herbs hanging in bundles like protective charms. Knocking, Eliza was met by a woman in her 40s, her dark hair streaked with silver, eyes sharp as flint. "Miss Thorne," Marianne said, voice cool. "I heard you dismantled our little troupe. What now?" No preamble needed. Eliza showed the photos. "These carvings, your handiwork? They're straight from Agnes's diary, used by your players. Why keep the curse myth going?" Marianne's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "You're thorough. Come in." The cottage was a shrine to folklore. Shelves of grimoires, maps pinned with ley lines. Over nettle tea, bitter, grounding, Marianne spoke. "The carvings? Mine. Not to harm, but to honor. Agnes wasn't mad. She saw patterns, grudges, betrayals, etched into this place's soul. I study them, keep them alive to understand why we're drawn to darkness." Eliza leaned forward, sensing truth laced with obsession. "But why now? After the quarry, you're risking panic." Marianne's gaze hardened. "Because you're exposing us. Your article will strip Netherwallop bare, make us a curiosity. The carvings remind people we're more than quaint.
We are a crucible of human nature. The words echoed Eliza's thesis, but twisted. You're manufacturing fear, she countered. Agnes's curse was grief, not magic. You're perpetuating a lie. Marianne stood, her voice rising. A lie. It's truth. Villages breed secrets. Christie knew it. I'm preserving that legacy, not for tourists, but for us, to face who we are. The confrontation teetered on hostility, but Eliza shifted tactics, softening. Then help me tell that story, not through fear, but facts. Join me. Let's write the real Netherwallop, curse and all. Marianne paused, conflict flickering in her eyes. Finally, she nodded. All right, but no sanitizing. Show the raw edges. The pact was struck. Over hours they collaborated, Marianne sharing folklore archives, tales of ancient land disputes, lovers' pacts, sealed in blood, all feeding Agnes's myth. Eliza wove them into her draft, crafting an article that framed St. Mary Mead's lethality as a mirror to human fragility, not supernatural doom. The carvings, they agreed, would cease. No need for props when truth sufficed. As dusk fell, Eliza returned to the rose garden, manuscript in hand. The village had embraced her, from Tommy's eager trust to Marianne's reluctant alliance. She met Edith there, now joined by Amelia Whittaker, the reconciled cousin who'd started a gardening club to heal old wounds. They sat together, sharing cider under the stars, the garden a cocoon of peace. You've changed us, Amelia said, her smile genuine. We're not just Christie's shadow now. We're us, flaws and all. Edith raised her glass. To Netherwallop, resilient, not cursed. Eliza clinked, her heart full. Her article, sent to her editor that night, was a hit, published weeks later to acclaim. It peeled back the myth, celebrating the village's spirit over its specters. No watchers trailed her now. The shadows had dissolved in the light of honesty. As she left Netherwallop at dawn, suitcase in tow, the sunrise bathed the roses in gold. Eliza glanced back, seeing not a murder capital, but a community reborn.
Chapter 7. The Echoes Beyond. 6 months had passed since Eliza Thorne left Netherwallop, her suitcase lighter, but her mind heavier with the truth she'd unearthed. The rose garden's golden farewell lingered in her memory, a snapshot of peace after a whirlwind of revelations. Her article, The Murder Capital Myth, Unraveling St. Mary Mead's Real Roots, had hit the stands in the Daily Echo to critical acclaim, sparking debates from literary salons to village pubs. It painted Netherwallop not as a cursed hamlet, but as a mirror to human nature, where intimacy bred both conflict and redemption. Now, in her cramped London flat, Eliza faced a new challenge. What did it all mean for her? The city's clamor, honking taxis, the buzz of neon signs, felt alien after the quiet lanes of Hampshire. She sat at her desk, surrounded by clippings of her article pinned to a corkboard, each headline a testament to her triumph. Journalist debunks village curse. Christie's legacy reimagined. But beneath the accolades, a restlessness stirred. Netherwallop had changed her, sharpened her lens on the world. The question was, how to carry that forward. Her editor, Marjorie Banks, a chain-smoking veteran with a penchant for bold scoops, had summoned her to the office that morning. Eliza navigated the bustling newsroom, dodging interns juggling coffee and deadlines, to find Marjorie leaning back in her chair, a copy of the article on her desk. "Thorne, you've stirred a hornet's nest. Readers love the human angle, but they're clamoring for more. Got a follow-up in you?" Eliza hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of her notebook. "The story's done, Marjorie. The curse was a myth, folklore twisted by zealots like Voss and at-lonely souls like Agnes. Netherwallop just a village, not a crime scene." Marjorie's eyes gleamed.
Exactly. That's why it's universal. You showed one hamlet's heart, now show the world's. I'm sending you to Cornwall. St. Ives, to be precise. Another Christie haunt, rumored to inspire, and then there were none. Locals claim a smuggler's curse lingers. Sound familiar? Eliza's pulse quickened, a mix of dread and excitement. Another village, another myth? She'd vowed to leave Netherwallop's shadows behind, but the pull of discovery was magnetic. "I'm not chasing ghosts again," she said to herself. Marjorie grinned. "Not ghosts, people. Dig into their stories. You've got a knack for that. 2 weeks, full expenses. Deal?" Reluctantly, Eliza nodded. Back home she packed, her thoughts drifting to Netherwallop's faces. Edith's warm wisdom, Tommy's eager grin, Marianne's erse conviction. They'd taught her the truth lay not in sensationalism, but in the quiet cracks of human lives. Cornwall would be different, no reenactments or carved sigils, she hoped, but the same principle applied. Listen, observe, unravel. The train to St. Ives wound through rugged cliffs and turquoise bays, the sea a restless companion. Eliza booked into a seaside inn, the Mermaid's Rest, its walls adorned with nautical relics, rusted anchors, faded maps of smugglers' coves. The innkeeper, a wiry woman named Gwen with salt-bleached hair, welcomed her with a mug of spiced rum. "Heard you're the sleuth who tamed Netherwallop. St. Ives has its own tales, mind. Smugglers' curses don't fade easy." Eliza smiled, deflecting. "Just here for Christie's footprints. No curses this time." Gwen's laugh was knowing. "We'll see. The sea whispers louder than roses." Her first day was spent tracing Christie's path, the harbor where "And Then There Were None's Island" loomed in fiction, its real counterpart a rocky outcrop shrouded in mist. Locals shared snippets. An old lighthouse caper vanished in the 30s, blamed by smugglers' ghosts. A wrecked ship in 47, its cargo of gold never found. Each tale echoed Netherwallop's pattern, tragedy spun into legend, human greed at the core. At a cliffside cafe, Eliza met Jasper Trelawney, a retired fisherman with hands like weathered driftwood. Over fish stew, he spun a yarn of his grandfather, a smuggler caught in a 1920s raid. "No curse," Jasper said, eyes twinkling, "just betrayal. His mate tipped off the revenue man for a cut of the loot. Granddad swung for it, hanged at Bodmin, but folks swore his ghost cursed the cove." Eliza's pen danced. "Sounds like Christie's plots. Betrayal over greed dressed as supernatural." Jasper nodded. "Aye, people love a ghost story. Hides the ugly truth. We're our own worst enemies." The conversation shifted to her article. Jasper had read it online, forwarded by a cousin in Netherwallop. "You showed 'em your soul," he said. "Do the same for us. St. Ives ain't cursed, just scarred." Inspired, Eliza wandered the cobbled streets, sketching parallels. Netherwallop's feuds were land-bound, Cornwall's sea-soaked, but both thrived on human flaws. At a bookshop, she found a rare Christie biography, its pages detailing Agatha's 1930s visits to St. Ives, where she'd watched fishermen barter and smugglers' descendants gossip. Marple's observational genius, it seemed, was honed here too, in the interplay of tide and temperament. Back at the inn, a letter awaited, handwritten, postmarked Netherwallop. Her heart skipped. Was this another anonymous note? But the script was familiar. Edith Poole's elegant cursive. "Dear Eliza, your article brought us together. The gardening club thrives. Tommy's our mascot. We're proud to be more than a myth. Visit soon. Yours, Edith." Tears pricked Eliza's eyes. Netherwallop had healed, its legacy not murder, but resilience. The letter grounded her purpose. St. Ives deserved the same clarity. That night she joined a beach bonfire. Locals gathered around crackling driftwood. A folk singer, Leela, drummed a guitar, her ballad weaving tales of lost ships and broken promises. Between songs, Eliza shared her mission, earning nods.
"You're like Marple," Leela said, her voice husky, "seeing what we bury." Eliza laughed. "I'm just a journalist, but I'll tell your story. Truth, not curses." The next day, she visited the old lighthouse, its beacon long extinguished. The keeper, an elderly woman named Morwenna, shared records of the 30s vanishing. "No ghost," she said. "He ran off with a merchant's wife. Left a note, but the town preferred the curse tale, sold more postcards." Eliza's article took shape, blending Cornwall's rugged lore with Netherwallop's lessons. Villages aren't cursed, they're human. From St. Mary Mead to St. Ives, we weave myths to mask our flaws, but truth blooms in the cracks. She wove in Jasper's tale, Morwenna's candor, and Christie's legacy, framing small communities as microcosms of universal struggles. On her final evening, Eliza walked the cliffs, the sea roaring below. A figure approached, not a shadowy watcher, but Tommy, the boy from Netherwallop, on holiday with his family. "Miss Eliza!" he shouted, kite in hand. "Granny sent me to find you. She says you're our hero." Laughing, Eliza hugged him. "No hero, just a storyteller, like you'll be someday." As stars emerged, she reflected. Netherwallop had taught her to see beyond facades. St. Ives cemented it. Her journey wasn't about murders, but mirrors, reflecting humanity's capacity for both malice and mending. Her article, sent to Marjorie that night, was her swan song to the project, a complete arc of discovery and peace. Boarding the train back to London, Eliza felt unburdened. The echoes of St. Mary Mead, Netherwallop, and now St. Ives resonated not as curses, but as testaments to resilience. She'd carry their lessons forward. No mysteries left to chase, just stories to tell under new skies.